Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. And I wanted to start today's video by asking you a personal question, a secret question. And that question is, are you breaking the law? Are you a criminal? Are you engaged in illegal activities? In our quest for ultimate self-preservation, self-determination, liberty of choice, and freedom of movement, it is important to take a close look and analysis of the things that actually will cost us that freedom that we value and cherish so much. Indeed, today we are talking about the law, the long arm of the law, or what the Grand Master of the Deceptive Arts, Sun Tzu, calls the moral law. The fastest and most certain way for you to lose your liberty, your freedom, to sacrifice your self-determination, is to get arrested and become incarcerated. And for that reason, today we are going to try to identify and define some of the crucial legal expressions that are commonly used for and against us. We're going to try and dissect their meaning, to also deduce their causes and mitigate ultimately their consequences for you, especially if you are going to be still engaged in these romance wars and these relationships. Indeed, many of these conflicts are going to be fought in the court of law, and the victory or loss that you will have in the end will be determined in that court of law. During the pre-reading, I realized that many of these words that we'll be looking at today and some of these phrases are actually very commonly used in media, in broadcasting, in social media, and in general colloquial communications. But their meaning and their meanings are often elusive and ambiguous, particularly when it comes to the legal framework. One thing or a word might mean one thing socially, but have completely different implications legally. And this is true really for most men, especially for young bachelors. Now, I want to make a disclaimer before I proceed any further. I am not a lawyer. Although I say that I am under social circumstances, this is not a social circumstance exactly, right? This is a very legal platform and they have very strict guidelines. So I am not a lawyer. I am the master of the deceptive arts, however. Therefore, this is not legal advice, right? This is not legal advice. If you need legal advice, you got to go speak to a lawyer and you got to pay that money. Make an appointment for a consultation and pay that money, right? But yeah, this is not legal advice, right? We are quite frankly having a meaningful social discussion, right? Not trying to get sued. Let's proceed with confidence and ask ourselves, why is it important for bachelors, for vasectomites, and even you knee benders out there to be familiar with the law? And in truth, there are several good reasons, right? And let me list a few of them here. Starting with it gives you a strategic advantage to familiarize yourself with the law. This is Earth. This is Earth, people. The biggest corporation and possibly the only corporation of this magnitude anywhere in the universe. This small planet happens to be the richest planet in the universe. Despite not knowing that, it's still true. This planet is governed by laws, right? And knowing those laws gives you a strategic advantage. When you break the law, I've said it a million times, you give ammunition to your enemies, and you cannot be certain how or when they will use your crimes against you and hold your secrets out to the light. You cannot be sure when your enemies will expose you if you give them this ammunition, right? And any time that you break the law, you cannot unbreak the law, right? So that ammunition is enduring, right? It can be there forever sometimes. You must remember that the counterpart cannot keep a secret and they cannot maintain discretion of any kind and generally under any circumstances. These people love to talk. So if you've involved a counterpart into whatever your dealings are, you can absolutely be sure they're going to tell somebody. They may not tell somebody in this circle, but they may very well tell somebody who's on the other side of the world by simply picking up their phone and not shutting their mouth, right? And when they aren't talking about their inconsequential emotions, you can be sure that they're talking about other people. And they always try to be as interesting as possible. So if you've committed a crime, nothing can be more interesting to discuss than a counterpart. For a counterpart, I beg your pardon, than your crime, right? It'll come up in almost every conversation that they have. And then they'll try and make it sound like it's a secret, when quite frankly, they're speaking to a crowd and a room full of people, right? Eventually, despite their best effort, they will tell someone about what you have done, even if you did it on their behalf and for their benefit. Remember that. Even if you do something for the counterpart and it happens to be illegal or let's say in a legal gray area, they will inevitably tell someone. And if law enforcement should ever question that counterpart about that particular day and that particular activity, you can be certain they will divulge all the details. They will leave nothing, I mean nothing out, and they will leave nothing to the imagination. They'll talk about what happened and then talk about how that action or inaction made them feel. I mean, they will be very descriptive, right? So if you do this, you can be sure that the counterpart will wait for the worst possible moment and then they will divulge your information. and they may do it for their own benefit, right, to gain something, or probably they'll do it to try and save themselves. The other thing that you want to consider when you familiarize yourself with the law is that it gives you control, not just over yourself, but over the circumstances and over other people, right? When you are a law abiding citizen, you do not need to fear the consequences of breaking the law. So you can be sure that you can limit or mitigate that type of damage, right? You never have to worry that someone is gonna, I mean, someone can always accuse you, right? But even if they do, you don't have to worry that there'll be any evidence to substantiate those claims, especially if you are deliberate about not breaking the law. It's one thing for you to pretend that you don't break the law and then you go ahead and break the law. That's not good enough, right? You need to be so prepared that you go to places where whatever you want to do is legal when you want to do it. Therefore, what you can do whatever you want to do, but just make sure you do it at a time and a place and in a way that doesn't leave you open to legal scrutiny, right? You need to control those circumstances, right? And once you decide these are the circumstances under which I will engage, when other people introduce new circumstances or want to change those circumstances, then you can maintain your course and keep moving legally and leave them to take that risk, right? But you don't want to be just a law abiding citizen. You want to be more than that. You need to do what the Grand Master of the Deceptive Arts calls, you need to cultivate the moral law. You need to be more than just a law abiding citizen. You must study, you must practice, and you must apply legal guidelines strictly. Strictly. Therefore, when people deviate from this, you are the authority to say, no, let's return to the right path, right? The legal path, not the moral path, but the legal path. This is really where you want to hold the advantage, right? You must uphold the law and grow and change with it as it does. So if the law allows certain things, then go ahead and participate in those things. If the law doesn't allow for those things, you need to find a way to remove yourself from those things. When the laws change, you need to change with them. And you must understand that laws change often, right? Not every law, some laws are just a staple of society. But there are laws that, quite frankly, they do change, especially like business laws. But we're not talking about those laws today. We're really talking about social laws, human to human interaction, right? And even those laws are subject to regular updates and changes, right? Now, when you keep up with this, right, it gives you the ammunition, right? All this, when you uphold the law, it gives you the ammunition against your enemies, and then you can use that ammunition against them anytime you want. Even if you yourself have a secret or some type of insidious proclivity or activity, you must hide those activities, those secrets, by lying through omission, right? So don't ever let anybody witness you misbehave or even break the law, or act and speak in a way that indicates the capacity or even understanding for illegality. So stop using slang, right? Stop speaking like the rappers on TV, right? Use full words, pronounce every possible, what is this? Pronounce everything correctly is what I'm trying to say, right? Don't get caught in social trends that are gonna make you behave in a way that will eventually, bring you up to be investigated, right? That'll open you up to some type of scrutiny. But what you want to do is you want to get your enemies to behave that way, right? So try to encourage your enemies to behave in foolish ways. And maybe even when you're with them, you may want to mimic that behavior to encourage that, but then make sure you leave soon thereafter and let them act it out while you stay back, right? And you can be a witness instead, right? Remember that even the perception that you have the capacity for impropriety will lead other people to look deeper into you, to create analysis is the word that I'm looking for, to have a deeper analysis into you and investigate you, right? And when they do, they need to find nothing, right? You need to make sure that you know yourself, know what it is that you like to do that is taboo, and know what it is that you like to do that is socially acceptable, and let everybody lean towards the socially acceptable. It shouldn't be very difficult to hide any type of proclivity. Most people don't have, more than one or two proclivities that might warrant scrutiny, right? And if you have those one or two things that, quite frankly, make you human like the rest of us, you need to make sure that nobody ever finds those things. You need to be, quite frankly, you need to be so secretive that people never ever see you sleep, right? So whenever people, I'm not saying that you shouldn't sleep, go ahead and sleep, but make sure that when you do sleep, nobody sees you sleep, right? Don't ever let them see you weak, right? And make sure, like, you need to go as far as to not let people see you sleep, let alone let them see you misbehave, let alone let them see you break the law. Absolutely not. This is the height of deception. The key to being the master of the deceptive arts is controlling the extent of the law, right? Controlling and mitigating the damage that the law can do to you. And you do that by, quite frankly, obeying the law, right? As far as you can, right? Do not let anybody know your proclivities or your activities, right? And definitely not your vasectomy. You got to keep all those things well hidden, right? And then proceed to uphold and promote the law in all your dealings, right? Especially the cloaked and covered ones, right? But don't go and something that people do is if they have, say, an example, a proclivity for partying. I'm going to say partying, celebrations, right? Because they want to misdirect people away from that proclivity, what they will do is they will start speaking up against that proclivity. So they'll start criticizing people who go partying. They'll start criticizing people who enjoy certain things, and you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that, right? What you want to do is to not be seen doing those things. But in the case, for example, partying, which is quite frankly a legal activity, nothing wrong with partying. But I'm using that as a euphemism for other things. You can fill in whatever blanks you want. But in this particular case, should you be caught, then you're not doing anything wrong. But quite frankly, if you are in a set of circumstances where you shouldn't be seen or caught doing that, you need to make sure that you can do that far away from people who you don't want them seeing you doing those things. You really need to be deliberate in hiding your things, and then you want to promote the law, right? You don't want to go against that. You don't want to criticize that, because then you're going to be called out for hypocrisy, right? So if you are a person who you know, like me, I'm all about the vasectomy, right? I cannot come out and then start criticizing suddenly men who get vasectomies. It's going to be suspicious, right? It's going to be a question of, why are you criticizing men who get vasectomies when what I should be doing is movie reviews, which is completely unrelated to the issue, right? Not even opposite, it should be completely unrelated. Criticize those people, right? Go criticize fashion. Talk about fashion instead of talking about the real issue. Just avoid it completely, right? Just avoid it completely. And then go ahead and uphold the law in every aspect of life. And should that issue come up, right? Should the issue of a vasectomy come up, you have to ask the question, well, is it legal? Oh, well, what are the benefits? What are the negatives? Oh, that's interesting. It's something that I need to look into a little bit more, but I don't know a lot about it, right? That's how you need to be. That's real deception. You can say, well, as long as there's some health benefits and it doesn't hurt anyone and it's not illegal, what difference does it make to me? That's the level of deception you have to be. You cannot be for or against anything. Just as long as it's legal and it's safe, it should be fine, right? Even though it is the ultimate deception, right? Don't let a woman come tell a vasectomy she's pregnant. Oh, it'll ruin your life, right? The next thing that being familiar with the law does is it gives you peace of mind, right? When you uphold and promote the law as far as you can, in your practices and in your speech, in your words, you can always be sure that you are on the right side of things. You are on the right side of a conversation. You are on the right side of the corporation. You are on the right side of the government. So, people who are blatant about their indiscretions are always paranoid, right? About being caught and discovered, right? So people who always have their indiscretions in the forefront of their mind, right? I don't want people to know about my vasectomy. I don't want people suspecting me of a vasectomy, right? It makes you paranoid. All day long you're worried about, do they know? Do they know? No, they don't know. They won't know unless you tell them, right? This causes what they call dis-ease or discomfort in you. And what happens is that naturally you will unwittingly and unintentionally play out and act out your paranoia, right? You will be looking over your shoulder, you'll be twitching, you'll be grasping your palms, you'll be sweaty, you'll be worried and concerned, right? You'll be walking with quick short steps instead of long easy strides, right? Your thoughts will induce your body to betray you, and your body will get you caught. Indeed, you need to have it ready in your mind. You need peace of mind, right? When you are out in the world, right? So when you leave your misgivings and your proclivities at home or in some unknown location, you lock them up in the sanctum of solitude, under lock and key, and safeguard that key, right? When you are out there prepared and ready, right? You can walk outside feeling safe and secure, knowing that you are on the right side of the law, and whatever your indiscretions are, you know that incarceration is absolutely not an option. This is the art of self preservation, right? Protect yourself at all times, particularly from yourself and your own proclivities. Self control is your only power. You cannot control the sun, the wind, the moon, the stars, the weather. You can't even control your own children. Just think about that. You can't even control your own children. Your only true option is to have unlimited control over yourself. And incarceration means you have no control over yourself for a very long time. Right? Remember what the Grand Master of the Deceptive Art says. Sun Tzu says, you can only be sure of your defenses if you hold positions that cannot be attacked. When you are on the right side of the law, in a guaranteeable, deliberate way, you cannot be attacked in this way, right? You can be discredited in other ways, but you cannot be attacked in this way. Sun Tzu also says you can only be sure of your attacks if you attack spots which cannot be defended. So you can only be sure of defeating your enemies once they have committed crimes and you have the evidence and proof of those crimes. It is only then that you truly have ammunition against them, and the enemy, will give you the opportunity of defending them. I beg your pardon, of defeating them. Sun Tzu says, right, the ability to protect ourselves lies in our own hands, but the opportunity of defeating the enemy will be provided by the enemy himself. So you keep yourself clear by not breaking the law, but you induce everybody you know to break that law, and you get ammunition on all of them. I don't care how much they say they love you, you make sure you get your ammunition and you keep it ready, right? So keep this tactic in mind as we read through these laws, right? Remember that while you should never commit these crimes, always try to get your friends, your enemies, your loved ones, your counterparts, your parents, try to get them to commit those crimes and then keep that evidence, right? Then you will always have the right strategy and the correct ammunition should you want to strike a definite blow. This is how you do it, right? This is what ammunition really looks like, right? And also try to see how many of these actually the counterpart, how many of these crimes the counterpart is actually committed against you or in your presence as we read through this. It was something that I could not help realize during the pre-reading of this material. I couldn't help but to see that and to realize that not only does the counterpart know these laws, but they have broken some, if not most of them, and or at least participated in one way or another in the breaking of these laws. So they may very well have been an accomplice, right, rather than a witness. And what you want to be is you want to be a witness rather than an accomplice, right? So before we start the reading, I want to give another disclaimer, right? This is not legal advice. I am not a lawyer. We are not having a legal discussion. We are merely having a social discussion with an academic assessment of common legal diction and common legal expression. If you need a lawyer, if you need real, genuine legal advice, you need to go and speak to a real lawyer, not the master of the deceptive arts. That That would be a big mistake. Our material today is entitled The A to Z Legal Guide Phrases. Now, this isn't the full document. The full document is it's about 90 pages long. It's actually quite a hefty document. So it's not the full guide, the A to Z guide of legal phrases, but I took out the ones that I thought would be relevant for us for social interaction. Many of them are financially based, things like title deeds and that kind of thing, and other legal phrases, right? But so I these are the ones that I selected for us because I thought that they would be quite useful. Yes, I read the whole thing. Yes, I read the whole thing. It didn't take me long at all. So I had to read the whole thing in order to select what I thought were the most useful. Also, they are in alphabetical order, so they're not you know, linked or grouped in any specific category, right? So they just come to us from A to Z. They come from the Plain English campaign, and their website is www.plainenglish.co.uk. So the first legal expression we want to look at is abduction, right? Which means taking someone by force. So if you have a child and the infamous baby mama says that you have abducted the child, that means you've taken the child by force and against their will. This is what they are accusing you of. So what you need to do is maybe get record the interaction with your phone. Thank God we have phones and cameras right now with very good speakers, so you can indicate that one, it's a legal transition or transfer between you and the baby mama. Exchange of custody, I believe it's called. I'm not really versed in those things. I've never had to exchange custody, and God willing, I never will, right? But in that case, you need to ensure that every exchange of custody does not have the indications of force, right? An accessory, someone who engages or helps another person to commit a crime. Isn't this just like the counterpart? Right? So what they will do is encourage you to do something, or and then help you to do that thing, right, on their behalf. So this is something that you need to be cautious of as the master of the deceptive arts. You cannot coerce people into committing crimes. However, you are well within your rights of not stopping them, right? And asking, posing questions like, oh, how are you going to pull this off? Oh, yeah, is that really going to work? You know, don't you need a bigger car? You can ask those posing questions, but do not induce, rather, let them come up with the crime, right? And then you need to be intelligent enough to identify what that crime is, but don't encourage them to go out and commit a crime. Our next one is actual bodily harm, hurting another person, but with less severely than would amount to grievous bodily harm. Hurting another person, but less severely than would amount to grievous bodily harm. So this is violence. This is violence. Any type of violence is out of the question, right? There is always the question of self-defense, and I think the best form of self-defense is to seek legal retribution. So if you think you can take that beating, I suggest you take that beating, right? And then seek recourse afterwards. even in a case where you win the conflict and you are separated from that person, it will be you who is separated from the weaker vessel. It will be you who is incarcerated. And even if you are proven to be innocent, you'll still need to be processed for several days, right? So that processing can take some time. So yeah, violence is completely out. The word is accused, the person charged with a criminal offense, so you never want to be the accused. But really, there's nothing you can do if somebody decides to make an accusation against you. If they decide to charge you with something, all you can do is say, "Hey, look, I'm a law-abiding citizen. Not only that, I uphold and cultivate the law." Right? So that must be clear in all of your dealings to avoid being the accused. Our next word is the age of consent. The age when a person can consent to have intimate intercourse. In the UK, it is 16. I know that in most countries around the world, it is in and around that age. Personally, I suggest that you try and maintain somewhere in the region of 21 and over, especially if you are a man who is over the age of 25. People really don't look kindly on this kind of thing. That's number one. Number two, you have to understand that 16, you're still in high school. And number two, they're still legally under the control of their parents. And their parents are not going to be okay with that. That's number one. Number two, their parents probably got money, right? So even if you might have some money, 25, 26, you definitely don't have money like a 50-year-old. And a 50-year-old will crush you in the court of law. Just financially, they will destroy you. These people got money. So and if they don't, they can raise that money very quickly, right? They have decades of experience over you, right? They can go pawn a car, you know, and use that to sue you. It's really not that difficult or that far fetched. Like they have tons of stuff in the house that quite frankly, golf clubs and all kinds of things that they could get rid of and use that money to sue you, right? So 21 and over is my recommendation, but it appears the law is on your side for now. Aggravated assault, another form of violence, a more serious type of assault, such as one leading to actual bodily harm, bruising, scarring, scratching, bleeding, all kinds of things. These are provable sort of indications of violence. All violence all violence is out of the question, really. And a lot of these rules that we're going to look at, they will indicate not only just how many laws and definitions are there for violence, but just how serious the law takes violence, right? Especially in a domestic situation. If you are the accused in a domestic situation for aggravated assault, you can be sure you're going to be punished. Absolutely, you're going to be punished, right? Our next word, aggravated burglary. Entering premises armed with a weapon, intending to steal goods. So this doesn't actually indicate that you actually hurt someone. It indicates that you have the potential or the inclination to hurt someone. When you enter a premises where you're not supposed to be, and you enter that premises with a weapon, a knife, a bat, a stick, a firearm, but all you actually wanted to do was steal something, you didn't intend to actually hurt someone. The question is, if you didn't want to hurt someone, then why bring the weapon? Right? And if you're saying, well, for my own self defense, that doesn't really work because you broke the law coming in, you broke the law with the intent to steal, and now you are defending yourself against somebody preventing you from you from stealing from them. That's a contradiction. That's an absolute contradiction. You shouldn't have been there in the first place. And that person has the right to protect themselves as well as their property. So really, it's not going to be likely that you can get away with aggravated burglary, even if nobody gets hurt. Aggravated damages is extra damages awarded because the defendant has caused the victim anguish, loss of self respect, or shame. So, this is like if I don't know, if you try to steal something, or you try to hurt someone, or you know, or you damage something, right? Either on their person or something that they own. And if that causes them anguish, loss of self-respect or shame, like you beat him up very badly and now he feels shame and depression, right? They can sue you for that. They can sue you for aggravated damages, right? For anguish, loss of self respect or shame after the crime. So over and above the crime, they can sue you for how that crime has caused internal damage to them. So this is the thing with getting involved into the system. These things are ongoing, right? The consequences of crimes really do endure. So you want to really keep yourself on the right side of things. Our next one is aggravated vehicle taking. I don't know if people still steal cars, but I suppose if you do. But in these days and age of GPS and tracking and all that, you steal a car, they'll just catch you, right? They really found a way to fix that, right? And that's the thing really from the 80s and the 90s, maybe the early 2000s. But generally, you try and steal a car, they'll find you quite quickly. They'll be able to track you. There's cameras everywhere, right? Stealing a vehicle, driving it dangerously, and as a result, injuring someone or damaging property. So, yeah, that's very clear. So, you steal the vehicle, then you drive it in a dangerous and reckless way, and you hurt people or you kill people, right? Or you damage property, which is very unlikely because you're not driving cautiously or following, traffic laws. So, yeah, they'll get you for that one. That one is very clear cut to me. Arson, setting fire to something to cause damage to it. The counterpart loves this. Oh, this is their favorite thing, to light things up, right? They really like to put things on fire. They don't like water because water can be quite heavy. So, they don't really have the upper body strength to be bringing buckets and buckets of water. Men can do that. Men can cause a tremendous amount of damage with water. But the counterpart likes fire. So if the counterpart has lit anything of yours on fire, you need to record that on your phone, and then you need to get them arrested, right? Arson is a very dangerous crime. Arrest, to seize someone, so this is usually by the police, usually because they are suspected of committing a crime, and take them into custody. So, yes, this is exactly what we're talking about, right? You don't want this. You don't want to be in a situation where you are being seized because you are suspected or you actually did commit a crime, right? That's it. That's the end of your freedom, right? Arrestable offense, a crime for which a person may be arrested without a warranty being needed. So, yeah, like the aggravated vehicle taking, where you drive a car dangerously and hurt people. that is the kind of thing where you get arrested for immediately. So they don't even need like for you to hand yourself in or to give you a summons or that kind of thing or a warrant. They take you in right away. Violence, completely out of the question, right? Assault, another violent crime. When someone threatens another person with physical harm, words on their own do not amount to assault. So you need gestures, right? When you say that you will commit violence to someone, that doesn't necessarily count as assault. But I believe in some cases, when you raise your fist in a threat, even if you don't strike someone, when you raise your hand to someone, that could be seen as an assault, right? Um, when you speak dangerous words, right, or violent words, and then you take a step towards that person, right, closing in distance between them while you were saying those words, that could be seen as a threat, right? That action can be seen as an assault, even if you don't actually hit the person. Now there's a fine line to this, right? And you may need a lawyer to explain further, right? But yeah, you really want to not be threatening in your approach and in your demeanor. It's one thing for people to feel intimidated in your presence, right? Maybe you do have a physical presence. Maybe you intimidate them financially or your status or whatever it is, right? That's their own problem. But you cannot be threatening to them, right? You cannot be giving people ultimatums, right? Do this or this. No, you can't be doing that, right? You can make offers, right? But you cannot threaten and then play out those threats, right? You cannot take threatening action, even if it's just simulated, right? Even if it's just simulated, that could be viewed and seen and misconstrued in many various ways, and you don't want that type of ambiguity. So the next legal term is the word bail. What is bail? It is to pay or promise to pay an amount of money so that an accused person is not put in prison before the trial. If the accused person does not appear at the trial, the court can keep the money put up for bail. So, yeah, bail is the money you pay to keep you out of prison before your trial. After your trial, and they sentence you, that's something completely different. So while the trial is going on, you can stay home, and in some cases, I believe you can continue your regular business, right? Provided that you're not committing further crimes. And if you do, I believe that there's a possibility that the bail be revoked, right? The conditions of your bail be revoked and they keep the money and you go to jail, right? That's a possibility. Again, not legal advice, speak to a lawyer, right? We're talking about hypothetical situations here. Battery, another word for violence. Using physical force on someone, either intentionally or carelessly, without their agreement. So if you hurt someone intentionally or accidentally, and they didn't agree to be hit, right? People, yes, ironically, people do agree to get hit. Boxers do that. Professional fighters, they agree to get hit, right? So, but if they don't, then it's called battery. It would not be battery if two boxers, for example, took part in a boxing match, as I just mentioned, even though they hurt each other during the match because they would have agreed to fight each other. Most professional contact sports have this, right? to say that you will not hold them liable should you have an injury. It's in their interest to keep you safe and healthy and to help you in recovery, but you can't sue them if you get like a rough tackle or something on the field of play. Yeah, battery. So, breach of the peace or breaking the peace, some places I believe they call it disturbing the peace, when harm is done to someone or harm is threatened, right? Again, there you are threatening violence to someone, there you are causing violence. Now, just consider how many different terms so far we have heard that are violent based, right? Which tells you that under no circumstances will the law tolerate violence. Even the threat of violence has I don't know. I don't know if we can call it a law or a legal expression, right? But it has one. It has one, and you can be held accountable for that legally, right? Burglary is the next one. Entering a building without permission with the intention of stealing or doing damage. So this is different to the previous expression. What was that? It was, I can't remember what it was. Aggravated burglary. There we go. It was aggravated burglary. Very different to that, right? Here you are entering a building without permission, just trying to steal or just trying to do damage. Again, this is just another way of being violent. So instead of hurting a person, you're hurting property, right? Violence, a big no-no. Causation, one thing being done causing something else to happen, right? So when you are committing, so this is what we were talking about. So if you were trespassing, so you break into a building with the intention to steal, then you bring a weapon, and then you have to use the weapon because the person who you're trying to steal from heard you and is trying to, prevent you from stealing. If people are trying to steal, try not to prevent them, right? Try not to prevent them from this very reason. So, whatever TV or whatever they steal from your house, just remember they can only carry, you know, two hands worth of goods. So whatever they steal, whatever they destroy, you can replace that. Really, you can replace that. But if you find yourself in this situation, things will escalate, right? Things will escalate, and you don't want that. You don't want them escalating to violence, right? So you don't want. And also, I think if you're in this situation, stealing, I mean, you probably just want to steal and get out. I'm assuming I'm not a thief, right? The Bachelor Supreme. So I'm just assuming you just want to get what you want to get and go. So, you really don't want to escalate. And those escalations could cost you the rest of your life. Both sides, on both sides, right? It could be the end of your life or it could cost you the rest of your life, right? A charge sheet is the document on which a police officer records details of the accusation against a suspect. So this is where they write down the details of your criminality, right? I believe you have rights to access your charge sheet, right? I believe you should be able to see it, to see exactly what it is that they are accusing you of. But I also assume that you'll need a lawyer, right, in order to view, and when you do view, to be able to understand those documents. So I think it's always important to know what they call the documents where they document things on, because you don't want to say give me the paper with the details, right? You want to say may I see my charge sheet, right? You want to be specific, and then they'll decide if you're going to see it or not, right? Or what circumstances, under which circumstances you can see your chart sheet. On that note, we can ask ourselves, what are charges? A charge is to formally accuse someone of committing a crime. So when they say, what have you been charged with? In other words, what have you been accused of doing? Also, to use property as security for debt, such as a mortgage. That's interesting. I didn't know that. And also a direction given by a judge to tell the jury what they must do. So, yeah, again, it's like I said, these words can be ambiguous, right? In other words, they can have one or more meanings or no clear, easy way to understand them, right? So a charge is either what you're accused of, it is the property that you put up as security for debt, right? Such as a mortgage. So if you don't pay the mortgage, they take your house. Or a direction, an order given by a judge to tell the jury what they must do. Very interesting. Another one, this is associated with domestic issues, child abuse, right? So, child says they are abused. What are they saying? They are implying molestation, in other words, intimate impropriety, right? You're doing something wrong, which is why I always tell you of legal and consenting age, 21 and over. This is not an issue that you want to deal with. As a bachelor, anything that says child, you need to just stay away from it. There's not a single parent in the world who's going to disagree with this statement. And I know they're going to disagree with almost everything I say, right? Just from the point of view that I'm saying it on. But on this, I think we can all agree. Stay away from children. Anything that says teen, 18, 19, teen, stay away from it, right? Stay in the 20s, 21 and over, right? Yeah, keep it simple. Keep it simple, quite frankly, molestation or ill treatment suffered by a child, right? So, violence, mental, emotional, spiritual abuse, neglect, right? All these things can happen to a child, and no one is going to tolerate them. So, to the point where I would say, really just if you're dating somebody that has children, or you're involved with somebody who themselves already has children, stay away from the children, man. Don't be babysitting her kids. You don't have to. Yes, you might need the help, but you don't need the strife. You really don't need those kinds of problems, man. Child support and maintenance, right? The infamous child support. This is the amount of maintenance, in other words, money, that a parent not living with their child must pay. So this is why they kick you out of the house, right? Because she won't get child support if you're still living there, right? You can live next door and she'll happily take, that distance, and that assistance, but ultimately, for her to receive child support, you got to go, right? So it's you or it's the child support. That's really the choice, that the counterpart is making, right? Coercion, a defense that a crime was committed because the person accused was forced to do it. So you committed a crime and you said, I had no choice, I was forced to do it, and they forced me because they had this or they had that, or they used this ammunition or this tactic, right? Being paid is not coercion, right? So if somebody pays you to commit a crime, you committed that crime because there was something in it for you, right? But if you commit the crime and you take no payment and they catch you, right, which in other words means you committed the crime and you failed, you need to have strong evidence that somebody forced you. You need a clear cut message. You need a phone call. You need a recording. You need scars. You need all kinds of things to indicate that, in fact, you had no choice, including the choice of calling the police as soon as you were being coerced, which, quite frankly, is what you should have done, right? You should have, if you couldn't stay away from it, you should have used that as ammunition to destroy these enemies, right? But I don't know if coercion is a good enough defense. I don't know, but ask a lawyer. They will definitely know better than me. Common assault, again, violence, right? When someone threatens another person with physical harm, even if they are not touched, this is a less serious type of assault compared with aggravated assault. Threatening someone with a weapon such as a knife or a gun is common assault. Again, it's the gesturing. Gesturing is actually a very common problem when you act out the violent actions, and then you speak those words, even if you don't complete the action. It clearly states here that threatening somebody in that way is something that, quite frankly, the law is not going to tolerate, right? So you see a lot of this posturing and gesturing from certain type of influential people, and they might induce you to mimic their actions, right? To mimic their actions in a certain way. But little do you know that that gesturing, especially firearm indications, the moving of the forefinger as if to shoot off a firearm, that could be seen as common assault, right? And then, should you have a firearm there with you, very likely criminal activity, right? You can't threaten people with a firearm. Concealment is the next one at the bottom. Failure by one side negotiating a contract to disclose or reveal information which the other side would need to consider when deciding whether or not to go ahead. This is absolutely what the counterpart does, right? So they will keep something a secret from you that they know will disqualify you from dating them or getting into a relationship with them, but show you things that will make you want to be in a relationship with them, right? So they'll show you the things you want to see and hide the things that you actually need to see. So yeah, I don't think that that you could take that to the court of law as such. I thought it was an interesting definition, and you see it with the counterparts action and in the counterparts interactions. But I don't think you can go to a judge and say that, she told me she was a model and I found out she was a nurse, right? So you can't really sue someone for that kind of thing. You believe she was a model, uh, you know that's something completely different. Like, and then you dated her, right? So, and in the time you dated her, you couldn't figure out she was a model. I mean, seriously. Although it's described as such, right, under concealment, it just, I think this is more of a business term, right? When your company's in debt but you're making cash, right? So you show people the cash but you hide the debt, and they buy in the company, pay you a lot of money, and inherit a ton of debt with very little cash income, right? That is concealment, and that is illegal. Contempt of court is the offense of disobeying a court order, right? So not doing what the judge tells you to do. So they tell you to pay 500 in child support, and you pay 499. Abusing a judge during a court case, so insulting the judge, disrupting the court procedures deliberately as the judge is speaking, or even engaging the judge violently. Yeah, you can't do that. Or interfering in the administration of justice, right? So you cannot prevent them from charging you if they have found you to have committed some kind of impropriety. You cannot prevent them therefore from administering that justice. The next one, conspiracy, an agreement by two or more people to commit a crime, right? The counterpart does this, right? So they'll come together and they'll scheme and plot to do bad things, right? So when the two of you agree to commit a crime, whether you follow that through or not. So if you two agree to commit a crime and one person follows through on that crime, you might be a co-conspirator. You might be accused of being part of the planning, right? So be careful of that. Some people acting together and harming a third party, right? So two of you go beat up somebody, the guy that's your girlfriend is having an affair with, the wife is having an affair with. So you and your friend go together, you plan together to go and commit a crime, right? And you go and hurt someone. That is conspiracy. So even if you don't actually fight the guy and you stand there in support of your friend, you're still a co-conspirator, right? So just don't engage in other people's problems, right? They have a word here for you not minding your own business, right? It is a crime for you to not mind your own business. It's called conspiracy. So yeah, live the bachelor life, mind your own business, do your own thing. Consent is a very common word that is used in very popular online platforms and by many modern philosophers. But let's see what that means. It means to agree to something, or a contract would not be valid unless all the parties consented to it. Right? So when you consent, you are saying, I agree to participate in this activity. An activity is something that you act in or act on. Right? So you are agreeing to act in this thing and you are agreeing to act on, and you are agreeing that people will be acting in and on you too, right? That is consent. Criminal damage, the criminal offense of causing damage to someone else's property, either recklessly or intentionally. So again, violence, right? So, but now we're talking about violence to property. There are so many ways of that the Lord describes violence, right? So if you are damaging property, hurting people in any way, shape, or form, they will find a legal expression for that crime, and they'll charge you, right? So damaging someone else's property, either doing it blatantly or indirectly, doing it by accident or doing it intentionally, right? It's a crime and they will punish you for it. When one person is deceit, I beg your pardon, deceit is the next one. When one person deliberately misleads a second person with a statement which causes the second person to do something that causes them damage, right? So if somebody makes you do something that hurts you, right, or convinces you that something is good for you, and then you try it and you find out it's bad for you. So I'll give a medical example. If somebody induces you to drink something, convinces you to drink something, a milkshake of some kind, but you are allergic to one of the ingredients on that, you can sue that person for deceit, right? or even if they induce you to commit a crime like a financial crime that you don't know about, and they benefit financially while you lose out a tremendous amount of money, you can sue them for deceit. But you do need to prove that they are the one who coerced you rather than you making a mistake by yourself. Defamation, making a statement either orally or in writing which damages someone's reputation. The infamous baby mama does this. The infamous baby mama will call, the father the knee bender. She'll call him all kinds of names, deadbeats and all kinds of things. Whether or not he is up to date with his child support, whether or not he provides, whether or not he pays bills for his kids, she will still defame his character, which, in my opinion, quite frankly, is illegal. Right? People cannot attack your reputation, especially your professional reputation, just because you have a social or a private disagreement, right? So I don't know if they will have them arrested or charged somehow for defamation, even if you can prove it. But the law seems to be on your side. But it also goes the other way around. You can't go around saying things about people, right? Especially in a professional sense, especially in a place where they earn a living, because then they'll sue you, right? Socially, I suppose you can say whatever you want in secret and in the private of your own home. I know I do. I'm doing it right now to a certain extent, but I'm not attacking anybody's reputation. I don't think I'll be doing that on this platform at all. It's not really what I do. I'm not gonna start a beef. How primitive, how juvenile. It's childish, man. What are we gonna talk about? My point of view versus your point of view. Hey, I know my point of view, and I'm just gonna stick to it, right? From my own perspective, from my own background, from my own history and my own experiences, and my own problem solving mechanisms and ideas. So, why do I need to go argue that point with somebody else? For months, for months. If you want to get a vasectomy, you want one, right? And I'm not arguing that with anyone else. I already got my vasectomy. Divorce is the next word, and it is the legal end to a marriage, right? We know that marriage is the combining of assets, right? An assets combining contract between you, your spouse, and the national government of your country. Divorce, I would describe as a division of those assets, right? The legal end to a marriage contract. I wish they would have given more detail about what a divorce is, but it's just a simple legal definition. Uh, in order to get a divorce, you need to file a divorce petition, which is an application for the legal ending of the marriage. This is why I say that your marriage is between you, your spouse, and the government, right? The government makes the marriage real, and the government is going to decide when and how the marriage ends and how the assets are going to be divided, right? Division of assets. A dependent is someone who depends on someone else for financial support. An expanded definition of this is financial, physical, and emotional support, mental, spiritual, that kind of thing. But if you need someone to support you for something, you are a dependent. In the legal definition, as we can see, it removes the emotion completely and leaves just the money. Right? So you know that when they say someone is your dependent, legally we are talking about somebody to whom you need to pay money to or to pay money for. Next one is duress. I apologize, there should be a space partition there. I appear to have missed it. Duress is the threatening or pressuring someone to do something, again, it's a question of consent, right? You cannot force people, you cannot manipulate people into committing crimes or doing things for you. The best thing you can do is to pay them. The simplest, best way to get people to do what you want is to pay them. And generally, people don't need a lot of money to do things, right? They don't need like $10,000 to do things. You can actually get most people to do whatever you need for between $20 and $50 easily, or 20 and 50 of your local currency, right? And people will do what you want for the most part, right? But you cannot threaten people, you cannot put them under duress. Our next one is false pretense. This sounds just like the counterpart. Misleading someone by deliberately making a false statement. Yeah, so absolutely the counterpart. So they have laws for lying and they have laws for violent behavior. Really, it seems as if they've considered both the counterparts' advantages and nullified them, as well as the knee bender's advantages and nullified them. Right? So a counterpart can't go around misleading you by lying, right? So misleading is lying, false statement is a lie, right? So lying, not so good. There's a legal expression for that. Generally, I think if there's like an exchange of money, then those lies have consequences, and those consequences can have legal remedies, right? But I don't think if somebody says it's my birthday and you decide to take them out for cake, I don't think this is what they're talking about here in terms of false pretenses. False representations is lying in a statement to persuade someone to enter a contract, right? So you can't lie to get a lease, you can't lie to someone to buy a car or to help you buy a house or to help you get a credit card, that kind of thing, right? Lying in a statement to persuade someone to enter into a legal contract. Yeah, the counterpart absolutely does this all the time. Fraud, another form of lying or deceiving to make a profit or gain an advantage, or to cause someone else to make a loss or to suffer a disadvantage. I believe this is financially, right? So if you're committing fraud, if you lie to someone to get money, or you lie to someone to make them lose money, even as like a corporate strategy, right? So you're cooking those numbers, you're faking those statistics, and people buy into your company. That's a fraud, right? Intimidation, threatening or frightening someone to do something. Again, with the violence, really, there's just so many ways for them to describe violence, and I deliberately included these on here just to show you the different types of statements that they have for lies, and the different types of statement that they have for stealing, and the different types of statements that they have or expressions that they have for violence, right? So any little bit of violence that you do or indicate as a man, and it's always the men that are involved in violence, that type of activity can be deemed illegal, and you could be giving any ammunition to your enemies to destroy you. A juvenile offender is a person between age 10 and 18 who has committed a criminal offense. So after 18 years old, you will be tried as an adult. Some people, depending on when they turn 18, so if you commit a crime when you're 17 and your trial happens after you're 18, it's very possible that you get tried as an adult, right? It's a high possibility. Libel, a false statement made in writing or in some other permanent recording, such as a film or a video, right? There you go, another form of lying. This is very interesting, man. They have so many different phrases for lying and different circumstances under which you lie. Really, they just won't let you lie under any circumstances. And as the master of the deceptive arts, I find this quite troubling because I'm lying to everyone all the time about everything. So, you know how they're going to catch me, right? Maintenance, money paid and things paid for to support a partner, husband or wife, and children when a marriage has failed. This is alimony, right? So this is your car, your house, your retirement, whatever assets they can get for you to pay for your partner and children after the marriage has failed. Malice, intending to do something which is against the law. So your intention is to break the law, right? It's the same as conspiracy. But here I think this is just you by yourself. Malicious falsehood, a written or spoken lie told to harm somebody and which does do harm. So when you lie to somebody and your intent is to either get them to hurt themselves or put you in a position where you can do harm to them for physical harm to them is the word that I'm looking for. um, Man, they've got so many circumstances of lies. These people are lying all the time. I'm lying too, but I'm realizing now, if they wouldn't have so many laws for lying if people weren't lying too, right? So we're all lying. We're all lying. We're all doing the same thing. If I'm going down for lies, so are you. Misconduct, deliberately doing something which is against the law or which is wrong. So breaking, this is when you know what the law is and you break the law anyway. So you know you shouldn't be breaking in there and you break the law anyway. So they'll charge you for misconduct every time. You're definitely getting misconduct every time. Misrepresentation, another lie told to persuade someone to enter into a contract. Stop lying, people. I'm just going to move on to the next one. A nuisance, doing something that harms other people's rights. So this isn't harming them physically, I believe, but harming or diminishing their legal rights. Personal injury is the next one. An injury caused to a person. I think this is a self defining word, right? When somebody gets hurt. Really, they just don't want you hurting anyone. They don't want you causing problems with your lies, and they don't want you hurting people. Effectively, this is really what I'm getting from this, right? Perjury, another form of lying. My goodness. Lying to a court after you have been sworn in. So, before you've been sworn in, I believe your lies are just collected as evidence. But after you've been sworn in, you are required to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, or face jail time, right? Or some kind of legal punishment. Polygamy is being married to more than one person at once. I don't think this means having children by more than one person or being married to someone in a relationship with somebody else or being in a relationship with more than one person. You need to actually be legally married to more than one person. In some countries, it's legal. In other countries, it's not. So you need to check where you are. Better yet, just don't get married. Get a vasectomy. Play for play, I'm gonna call it play for play. Selling intimate services for money. Yeah, we know what that is. Violent intimate crimes. Having intimacy with a person without their permission, I beg your pardon, no consent, remember that word consent, we discussed it earlier, such as if they were asleep or unconscious. So you have to wake them up, right? And unconscious, I believe this also includes intoxication and under illicit substances. So if you're involved in an intoxicated encounter with somebody, that might be seen as a violent, intimate criminal act, right? When they're sleeping or unconscious or forcing them to have intimacy against their will. Yes. So they have to be desiring you, right? I don't think, if they are willing is one thing. It's one thing if you make the first move and they respond likewise. But if they say no and you coerce them, that could be seen as violent, intimate, criminal encounters. Resisting arrest. Okay, so yeah, once the police have indicated that they intend on arresting you, it's incumbent on you to allow them to arrest you. In fact, this is really what it is. You allow them to arrest you. You can resist, and that's going to be a problem, and they'll arrest you anyway. But don't resist, right? Just let the system play itself out, right? You and also really, there's no point in shouting and screaming at them at this point, because they have to process you through the system, and also if you do arrive at the station, you might be there for some time. You might as well get some sleep. If I'm being honest with you, staying up isn't gonna make the time go any faster. You're just gonna exhaust your strength, right? Resisting arrest is a person trying to prevent the police arresting him or her, usually by running away or by inducing violence. A charge could be made of obstructing a police officer in the course of duty. It could also be seen as trying to prevent the administration of justice, right? So this could go either way for you. Don't resist. Robbery, using or threatening to use force while carrying out a theft. So this is a violent theft. When they say robbery, you are so this isn't stealing when somebody is aware. They are there, they are resisting, and you are forcing to take their private property from them. More violence, right? Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Yeah, violence completely out of the question. Soliciting is actually closer to what happens when you are trying to seduce someone or convince someone to be intimate with you or to get into a relationship with you. It is defined as a pay for play provider attempting to get clients in a street or other public places asking you if you want to date. The act of asking for or trying to obtain something from someone. So in the process of trying to get something from someone, it could be money or even intimacy, right? That could be seen as soliciting, right? So be careful with that dating out there. It's very ambiguous definition, dating, right? Trying to get something from someone. That's really what soliciting is, right? So if you're trying to get a number, trying to get a date, trying to get an interaction, may very well be committing a crime. Slander, saying something untrue about a person or doing something such as making a gesture which damages their reputation. Again, here we're talking about the counterpart. They'll say anything about you to damage your reputation. They really will. And they'll damage your reputation from the start. So they'll say they're dating you because they're giving you a chance. And then you leave them and they'll say, oh, well, you broke my heart. And it's like, well, aren't you the one in the position of advantage? How do I break your heart if you're the heartbreaker? Aren't you giving me a chance to prove myself? So when I leave, having not proved myself, shouldn't you be okay with that? No, the counterpart will damage your reputation. There are rules to prevent people from damaging your reputation. So if the baby mama's out there calling you a deadbeat with no proof and no evidence, that is slander and that's a crime. And there are so many crimes against lying and preventing people from lying that any one of them is sufficient to get the counterpart convicted. To sue means to start legal proceedings in the civil court against someone, right? To charge them. Threatening behavior, there you go. Using threats, abuse, or insults against somebody. You can't do that. You can't be threatening people. You can't be violent. You can't be abusive, right? Just be cool, be calm, be collected, be conscious, be deliberate, right? Don't be threatening. Do not be emotional. Do not be violent. This is the law, right? This is the law. It's not a matter of philosophy. The law is telling you you can't do this. And I agree with the law. I agree with it in terms of like personal philosophy. You don't want to be this type of person, but also legally, they're not gonna let you be this type of person. Better for you to be a law upholding person who cultivates the law. Theft, again, taking someone's property dishonestly with the intention of never returning it. When you have the intention of returning it, I believe you are lending it, right? Um, so somebody borrows you something and then you want to return it later. If you don't, it's a theft. So even if they give it to you willingly, believing that you'll return it to them, the fact that you didn't makes it a theft. Unlawful wounding, more violence. It says here wounding someone without the justification of self defense or without power given by the law. So, this is when you take matters into your own hands, as they say, right? You see somebody doing something that you think is wrong. Many men do this. Many men do this. They take vigilante action, right? You see some guy arguing with his girlfriend, you jump in front of them and you punch the guy because you want to protect a lady. That's illegal, right? Wounding someone without justification of self-defense or without power given by the law. You have no right to interfere with somebody. You have no right actually to prevent someone from committing a crime. This is the truth, right? So if somebody's breaking into somebody else's house and you are not the owner of that property, legally you don't have the right to jump into that person or jump into that circumstance and help that person. Similarly, if a lady is in trouble and you see that her life is in danger, legally you could be sued for intervening. You really could be sued if the person that you if you hurt someone during that intervention trying to save lives and there's collateral damage, you could be sued for that. Seriously, you could be sued for that because you have now wounded somebody without justification. You think you're right, you have to prove that to the judge now, right? So there's no real justification of self-defense, so they weren't hurting you, right? And you have no power given to you by the law. You really cannot be going out there saving people, right? And I'm very happy that I read this law in particular because I'm all about not saving people. And the fact that there's a law that's on my side telling me that if I try and save somebody and someone gets hurt in that process, then I'm in the wrong. Not only do I not have the justification of self defense, which I most probably will not, I haven't got the power of the state to be doing that, right? So please don't be saving anybody. Do not rescue anyone, right? You don't have the power. You don't have the authority. And if they ask you for help, tell them the best thing you can do is call the police as you drive away in your car. Stay where you are. I'll call the police and tell them where you are. But I will not be intervening at all, especially if it leads to hurting somebody, right? And our last word is violent disorder. Again, more violence, right? This is especially for the men. I included these especially for the men, right? Men can be very violent. We can try to be heroes. We're always trying to save people. Violence is out of the question. Violence when trying to save and protect people, completely out of the question, right? What you need to be doing is you need to be getting a vasectomy and saving yourself, right? Violent disorder, three or more people in a gathering using or threatening to use unlawful violence. So when you and your friend see a guy and you think he's mistreating a lady and you want to jump in there and the two of you want to be heroes, right? The three of you want to be heroes, I beg your pardon, not two, and you go ahead and you defeat that man. You're all going to jail, right? You're all going to jail, right? There's no indication, there's no case where you can exercise violence. whether you think you are moral or you are immoral, whether you think you're in the right or you're being self-righteous. You cannot exercise violence against someone. It's completely out of the question, right? You definitely cannot be saving people. That needs to stop for very good legal reasons, right? So all you guys that are out here trying to save people, thinking you're doing the right thing, you're breaking the law, right? So that is the end of this list, a very insightful list, a very, very insightful list of crimes. And all of these are quite frankly very familiar to us. We've either been in a situation where we've witnessed this or have had this happen to us, or some of you may have even done this unwittingly, unknowingly, that you're breaking the law. If a counterpart is out there lying to you to get you to spend money, you can be sure that they are committing some or other crime, right? So if you've been manipulated to spend money, you might have legal recourse on your side, right? Which is why I'm always advocating that men don't break the law, right? Because these are very common interactions, very common circumstances that happen. And quite frankly, you don't need to do this, right? So if you're seeing people conducting violent behavior or using deception, you can indicate to them that, this is illegal, right? Any type of deception, whether you're lying for your own benefit or to benefit somebody else, or there's collateral damage because of your lies. Legal scholars, intelligent legal scholars, have assessed the situation and they've come up with a phrase and an expression for it. And we've just looked at just a handful of the legal phrases. There's a whole economic side of legal phrases. Now that's going to be very interesting. But for our benefit, social interactions is really where men are struggling, especially bachelors, because you are very often induced into anger and into violence, whether to prove your manhood, whether to protect somebody, or whether to uphold alpha masculinity, whatever you call it, right? You can't do that. You can't be threatening. You can't be a tough guy. You can't be raising your hands and doing gestures that you see from television, right? You have to keep it real and you have to keep it clean. You have to be a gentleman. You have no choice. Anything else is going to be deemed illegal. This is why in previous years, people put such a strong emphasis on being a gentleman and being well mannered, because it meant that you weren't breaking the law, right? It meant that you weren't a criminal. And the other type of behavior quickly proves itself. I mean, you start being violent, you start being belligerent, and then you start lying about your violence and your belligerence and your abuse, and soon enough you find yourself in prison, right? So you have to be a gentleman. You have to learn what that means, right? You have to learn what that means to be a gentleman. And I have, in fact, an article that I will be reading in the future. It's standing right there on my desktop. I've been meaning to read it, but I have so many things that I want us to discuss in terms of the bachelor life and how for you to do it realistically and successfully. Avoid the gimmicks, right? Avoid the funny stuff, right? Stay here in reality with us, where we can control the circumstances, right? Where being tough, being boisterous, being braggadocious is gonna get you arrested. Lying, playing games is only gonna get you arrested, right? And this list of rules proves that. Again, this is not legal advice. We're just looking at what the words say. We're just analyzing the text as it's written, right? And trying to apply it to our own lives and assess it for ourselves. If you need legal advice, the best thing you can do is call a lawyer and let them tell you what to do. But you really need to start acting, behaving, speaking like a gentleman, right? You create that habit so that you can be perceived as a law abiding citizen, right? And thereby succeed in your bachelor life. And I say it all the time, you can ruin your bachelor life by doing too much, by telling too many lies, by going too far, right? By trying to be too brave. You've been in the gym killing it, you've been in the dojo killing it, right? And now you want to come out into the real world and prove your skills and prove your strength. You can't do that. You can't do that. You do that, you go straight to jail. All right? And this list says that no violence. And in your deception, that's why I always say, socially you can tell all the lies that you want. To the counterpart, man, just lie to those people. But at work and in serious places, you need to lie by omission. You need to keep those things off the record. The things you don't want on the record, you gotta keep them off the record. Keep that record squeaky clean, suspiciously clean, right? Suspiciously clean. Just wipe every bit of dirt off there, and make a point of that. Make a point of keeping your record clean, right? Perfection. That way you don't have to worry about these legal issues, right? But in the future, I will do a video on really how to pull off being a gentleman, right? It's really about following a particular example, and aristocrats are not that example. High society is not the example of what a gentleman is. It's actually quite the opposite, and I'll demonstrate that. Now that I've thought about it, maybe I'll just do it tomorrow, right? It would be a suiting segue and a perfect segue and transition into what we are trying to do, right? But the law, make sure that the law is always on your side. This is a key factor to self-preservation and surviving the bachelor life, right? We have the medical aspect, which is the vasectomy, and now we have the legal aspect, which is to make you a law-abiding citizen, or at the very least, you have to be perceived at all times to be a law-abiding citizen, right? You want to survive the bachelor life, you cannot break the rules, because if you do, no one is going to come and save you. All right, this is all about self-preservation, self-control, and peace of mind. Along with that, you need to get your money up and you need to get your vasectomy. This is the end of the video, and I really appreciate your time and your attention. I always do, and I always will. Please protect yourself, protect your seed, protect your solitude, and don't break the law. Do not give your enemies ammunition against you, but get them to break the law so that you have ammunition against them. I am the Bachelor Supreme. I am the Ancient One, and I am the master of the deceptive arts. Have a nice day.